The winds of change are blowing across the energy sector. Cleaner ways of generating power are seeing rapid growth, while energy efficiency is becoming a priority. Successive greenhouse gas reduction targets set for the coming decades now have to be met. So how will energy evolve by 2050? What role will different energy sources have? We've brought together a trio of top-level energy experts to tackle that question, starting with Professor Claudia Kempfert, an advisor to some of Europe's leading politicians. We met up in Hamburg, the European Green Capital 2011. Claudia, on commentvisions.com this month, we're asking the question of which energy sources we'll be using in the year 2050. What are your thoughts?
We think that renewable energy will play a major role. That is a goal of the European Commission to have a share of 80% of renewable energy by 2050. Of course, we will see different energy options in different European countries, like solar energy in southern Europe, wind and hydro in northern Europe, and also we see some alternative fuels, like biofuels, which will be used and come out of renewable energy.
You have high-level contacts with politicians in Brussels and in Berlin. Do you think the politicians really grasp the challenges that are ahead of them when it comes to trying to meet these ambitious goals of 80% renewables by 2050?
I think the majority of politicians understand that this is a big challenge. You need, of course, to promote and find the right instruments, like, for example, the feed-in tariff system, which we have in Germany and many other European countries. And you need, of course, also the grid extension, the transmission lines, which needs to be extended and also combined in the European countries. And you need, of course, storage options, because if the wind is not blowing, the sun is not shining, you need to store electricity. And here the politicians need to support this.
What's the future for fossil fuels like gas and coal and oil?
Well, we need to substitute oil quite soon because we need alternative fuels because it's used for mobility. And, of course, coal will be used for electricity production in some European countries like Germany or Poland, for example. And gas is a good combination to renewable energy because it can be combined, it is flexible, and it can be used more easily than other electricity options.
This year, 20% of German energy demand was met by renewable sources. Here in Hamburg, the clean energy sector is worth €5 billion a year. Jan Rispen spends his time promoting the city's green business credentials. Jan, in practical terms, what's being done to cut greenhouse gas emissions in Hamburg now?
Well, there's a lot of work being done in a variety of fields, of course. It is about the industry getting better, saving more energies. There's a lot of work being done in the household area, so insulating houses to consume so that the households consume less energy. But there's also, of course, a lot of work on the industry level, too, to provide new technologies that produce renewable energy or that increase the energy efficiency.
We have these ambitious goals of introducing 80% renewable energy by 2050. First off, how do you achieve that, and then what makes up the other 20%?
Well, I think we need the full bandwidth of all the renewable technologies. For the time being, I think wind power will be very important, onshore and offshore. In the next decade, that will be dominant, I think. But solar power is also gaining very fast. The price is coming down, so I expect in the next 2 to 3 decades that solar power will become very important. Biomass will be important because it is storable. But I'm also convinced that for a long, long time, many decades, we will need conventional power to support the system. Especially gas-powered stations will be important. So I think the last 20% will probably be gas-powered stations.
Predictions vary for which energy sources we'll be using in 2050, as you can read on the commentvisions.com website. To hear another viewpoint, we went to Paris, to the home of the OECD. Economist Jan Horst Kepler believes the rollout of Europe's emissions trading scheme will have a big impact in the coming decades. Jan Horst, looking forward to 2050, how do you see the energy sources that we'll be using then differing from those that we use now?
In 2050, I would think that we should and that we will use a lot more carbon-free energy sources, such as renewables, such as nuclear. And that change will be driven by increasing concerns about climate change and greenhouse gas emissions, and will probably be achieved through gradually changing prices, higher prices for carbon emissions and for energy in general.
What kind of reforms would you like to see in the energy market to reach the carbon emission reduction goals that we've set for 2050?
Well, frankly, I think there needs to be only one major strategic policy issue discussed at the EU level, and that's about the price of carbon. That's really the driver for everything else. And there, the governments in general and the European Commission should really organize a broad debate. What's the price of carbon that we want right now? What's the price of carbon that we want in 2050? And what's the trajectory getting from here to there?
The winds of change may be blowing, but the answer to that question of how to take the energy sector from here to there still hangs in the air.